All right, let's talk about something huge. There's a massive economic force that's quietly reshaping our entire world. And no, it's not inflation, it's not interest rates, it's something way more fundamental. It's our population. We're going to break down this demographic shockwave that could seriously define your financial future.
So, think about this for a second. What if the biggest threat we're facing isn't one of the usual suspects? This is the provocative question at the heart of our whole analysis today. See, all around the globe, birth rates are falling off a cliff, and that's setting the stage for an economic shock that's unlike anything we've ever seen. It's this massive, under-the-radar story, and we really need to get our heads around it. In fact, this idea of a demographic collapse is so big, it's the entire focus of an episode from the Deep Dive podcast. You might have heard of it. It's hosted by two sentient AIs, Nick and Pi. In their episode, number 130, they dug deep into the critical role population plays in our economy. So today, we're unpacking their findings to see why this matters so much to you.
So let's jump right into the numbers. For generations, we've been worried about a population bomb, too many people. But it turns out the real crisis might be the complete opposite.
Okay, the key number to understand here, the one that makes everything else make sense, is the replacement rate. Basically, for our population to just stay stable, not grow, not shrink, each woman needs to have, on average, about 2.1 children. That 2.1 is the bedrock. It's the magic number.
And this is where the alarm bells start ringing. We're not just missing that 2.1 number in a lot of places. We're not even close. Just look at South Korea, way down at 0.72, or Europe, hovering around 1.4. This isn't some problem for our grandkids to solve. It's happening right now.
So, the obvious question is why? Why is this happening everywhere? Well, it's not just one thing. It's more like a perfect storm of social and economic pressures all hitting at once. Our source material really boils it down to four main drivers creating this storm. You've got things like widespread social isolation and just shifting family dynamics changing how we all connect. And of course, there's this deep, gnawing uncertainty about the future. But maybe the biggest driver of all is that first one on the list, prohibitive economics. Let me show you a number that makes this crystal clear. $310,000. Just let that number sink in. That is the average cost to raise one child in the US, and that's before you even think about college. When you see a number like that and you combine it with wages that have barely budged for decades, well, it's no wonder fewer people feel like they can afford to start a family.
And this whole demographic shift, it has this massive domino effect. See, fewer young people doesn't just mean empty classrooms. It means the very foundation of our entire financial system is starting to shake. And the first major cracks, they're appearing in our pension systems. This right here is the multi-trillion-dollar question, isn't it? Our retirement systems were all built on a very simple promise. The next generation pays for the last one. But what happens when that next generation is way, way smaller? The source material we're drawing from uses a really powerful and frankly unsettling analogy. It says many of these systems basically operate like giant Ponzi schemes. They need a constant flow of new money from young workers to pay out the promised benefits to retirees. When that stream of new money slows to a trickle, the whole thing gets incredibly unstable.
This leaves governments with three pretty terrible choices. Look at them. One, they can jack up taxes on a workforce that's already smaller, which could totally crush the economy. Two, they could slash benefits for retirees, which risks massive social unrest. Or they can turn to option three, the stealth tactics. So that third option, stealth tactics, often leads to something called financial repression. And you can just think of this as a kind of invisible tax. When governments deliberately keep interest rates below the real rate of inflation, they are quietly, secretly eroding the value of your savings. It makes their own giant debts easier to pay off, but it punishes savers. It's a way to break a promise without anyone noticing.
Okay, I know. A lot of that sounds pretty grim. But here's the twist. This same demographic shift is also kicking off this incredible, once-in-a-generation rebalancing of economic power. For the last 40 years or so, we've all been living in the era of capital. There was a seemingly endless supply of cheap labor all over the world, which meant big corporations held all the cards and wages basically stagnated. But now we're entering what you might call the era of labor. With fewer workers to go around, the tables are turning. Scarcity creates value, and all of a sudden, workers have leverage they just haven't had in decades.
This quote from the source really just nails it. This crisis, this demographic collapse, is accidentally creating a much more level playing field.
It's not a new policy, it's not a protest movement driving this change, it's pure, simple, raw demographics.
And hey, this isn't just some theory. This is real, and it's happening right now. Just look at Japan. They're a couple of decades ahead of the West on this demographic curve. They're facing these severe labor shortages, and some companies are hiking salaries by almost 10% a year. And get this, people who switch jobs are seeing raises of over 40%. The companies have no choice. They have to pay up.
So, this brings us to the most important question of all. What does all of this mean for you, personally? And how can you position yourself not just to survive, but to actually thrive in this completely new reality?
Well, this new era demands a whole new playbook. First off, invest in yourself, in your skills. In a world with labor shortages, you are your greatest asset. Second, think globally with your investments. Don't tie your entire future to just one country's demographic fate. And finally, you have to take control of your retirement. The old model of just relying on a pension, yeah, that's getting riskier by the day.
You know, the economic forces that define the last 50 years, they're reversing. The pendulum is swinging away from capital, and it's swinging back towards labor. Now, this shift is going to present enormous challenges, for sure, but it also creates some incredible opportunities for those who are prepared. The key is just to see it coming. So the real question is, are you positioned to swing with it?